Hey everybody, it's Steve, Short Shift Garage. Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel and having a look. Um, so how you all doing today? I didn't hear a word. What the hell? Oh, okay. I guess you're out there. Oh man. Hey, today we're going to talk about fueling, and a lot of people go straight to timing, but there's some things in fueling that we need to look at before we go to timing. Um, and They're real quick, so I'll probably jump into timing after this, but it's going to be hard. Actually, no, I won't jump into timing after this at all. We'll do timing in a separate video after I have these minor fueling issues corrected. And they're minor, and I'll explain why that is in a minute. But let's just jump over to the desktop. You know the drill. There we are. All right, so on the desktop here on the right hand side I have BCM scanner, on the left hand side I have BCM editor. This is a 2023 Dodge Challenger 5.7 liter automatic, and that's the tune file, and this is a log file off that same car, and this is the stock tune log file, very stock. I haven't even corrected the VE tables on this. But, are they actually, I should rephrase that. I haven't even corrected the neural network yet on it, the weights and biases. So, let's talk about that for a moment before we jump into this area right here, FA enrichment and power enrichment. The one thing that Diablo Sport CMR tuners, first of all, you'll have to have somebody else do it unless you're a member of their tuners network. But if you just have your Diablo Sport, or maybe you got a Trinity, maybe you've got an Intune or something like that, I don't know. But any of those things, they can't do what we can do with HP tuners in the neural network. So they don't touch the VE tables. And you'll often see them, if they're a mediocre tuner, you'll often see them adjusting injector pulse widths. That's not the way we don't have to do that, okay? And I'm going to stop short of calling the lazy man's way of doing it. If you have HP tuners and you're doing that, yeah, you're lazy. But if you've got Diablo, sometimes it's your only option. So, if you come across somebody, a tune, and you've pulled it off of somebody that's been tuning with Diablo, you pulled that tune off and you're looking at it in HP tuners and you see things that look weird, just understand that it's a different breed of animal, and we can do a lot more in HP tuners than they can do in Diablo, and that's primarily the reason I stay with HP tuners, even though it's getting their nickel and diming us to death. Anyway, so what you're going to need to log for fueling is FA enrichment, FA power enrichment. Make sure you log air charge. The rest of it's pretty simple. Of course, you're going to log spark and things like that, and your knock retard. Knock retard is pretty important at this point because that's what we're looking at. And you'll hear people tell you, hey, don't chase the knock sensors. Well, I'm going to flat out tell you right now, I don't like people that say that. I don't hate them, but I don't like them when they say that, because you really have to pay attention to your knock sensors. I mean, when you get knock, it's like slamming a hammer, a 2-pound sledgehammer into the top of your piston. It is not fun for the engine. It is the most damaging thing there is. So, let's take a look at something called, actually, I'll hold this up a little bit. Hopefully I can get enough of this together here. Yeah. Okay, so we can still see our fuel enrichment here. I'm going to slide this over. And what we're going to do is look at fuel enrichment. Now, looking at fuel enrichment this way, it is scaled by air charge and engine RPM, and you can actually go get that data at scaling. You can get it off a Spark table if you want. But this is probably the better way to look at it. However, when you chart it like this, you run into a problem because you can't see it instantaneously. So, and fueling is, I mean, it's happening like, microseconds, okay? And a little is a lot. This is one of the points where it's not just a little bit, it's not just a lot, it's a whole friggin' bunch. Okay, so when you make changes in your fueling, they are going to be very, very, very small. And the return on that is going to be pretty large. So we have to be real careful. Now, if we look at FA enrichment, when does FA enrichment occur? Well, FA enrichment is kind of a way that Dodge is designed into the system for protecting things, kind of. Okay, it knows under certain situations when everything else isn't 100% correct, a little bit of fuel can help and get you, through things. For instance, if you mash the pedal to the floor, well, that's a prime opportunity for a knock, unless you're adding fuel, extra fuel in at the same time. And power enrichment can't do enough on its own, so it calls in its buddy FA enrichment and says, hey, help me with this ramp in here. I'm going to hit the knock sensors. So that's one instance. Another instance is if your catalytic converters start to go outside of their, actually let's check a look at that real quick. I actually want to go here in temperature. So if your target catalytic converter, it's always going to try to maintain this 1,715 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes it lower, but it wants it in that range someplace. And the way it keeps it there is through fuel FA enrichment, okay? Not FA power enrichment, FA enrichment. Now these two items, although they kind of sound alike, they are totally separate in what their purpose is. They do work together, but they're separate as far as their actual purpose. So if you think of FA enrichment as a fueling method to help protect things, that is probably the best way to go. That makes it clear, I think. So it not only protects your catalytic converters, it also protects your exhaust system so that you're not burning out your mufflers, your resonators and your mufflers. So it wants to see your exhaust temp around 1600. That's done with a calculation, we know, because there's no exhaust temperature gauge out there. There's no sensor out there on that. The last sensor is obviously the catalytic converter. And the catalytic converter is kind of neat the way it does it. You get both temperatures for catalytic converters are calculated using both the forward and the rear O2 sensors. O2 sensors have one reading, the rear have another, and they average it together, and poof, there's your cat temp. It's done with calculations, but if you're sitting there and watching your O2 sensor, your rear O2 sensor, and expecting it to give you, accurate cat temp, it's not going to do it. There is a specific PID that you can log for cat temp, and I highly recommend you explore those and grab the ones you want so you know what your cat temp is. That way you'll be able to know when fuel enrichment is or cat temp is the responsibility of fuel enrichment. Now, that said, when we're tuning and we're working on this stuff here, we want to turn this off. Come on, show me that. Where'd it go? It went away. Maybe I gotta go full screen. There it is. Okay. So this is COT EOT max enrichment. Whenever you're working with fueling and tuning with fueling, you set these to 0. Okay, you effectively turn it off. You need to understand that your cap protection is gone at that point. It's completely gone. So when you do your logs, the areas of concern at first are going to be your wide open throttle. So separate your log when you go out to do your logging for wide open throttle, which is fuel. You're going to do fuel enrichment and you're going to do FA enrichment modifications. When we're doing that, we want to do just 2 quick wide open throttle pulls. Get the car warmed up to temp and driving normal, and as soon as it comes up to temp, do your wide open throttle pulls. That will give you the most accurate. Okay, and then once you're done, shut it down and create your tune, do your changes and modifications. Okay, once you have your changes and mods done, in order to check them to make sure they're working, you need to turn this back on. Okay, so when you go back out for your second log, you're not going to do your wide open throttle pulls. Well, you are, but you can combine them, but only if you have this turned back on. Otherwise, you risk overheating your cats and causing vehicle damage. Okay, I just want to get that out there up front. That doing this puts you at risk, but it's necessary, and I think everybody teaches it the same way. I'm not sure, but I know that's the way I do it. So I turn that off, and then I go in and I start thinking about what am I going to do. So I go over to power enrichment, and I first figure out, hey, do I need to do any changes to my ramp end? Now, this is the enrichment rate for ramp end. So in other words, the minute you stomp the gas pedal and start ramping in or tipping in, then the FA, the fuel FA enrichment begins increasing fueling and lowers the amount, 0.0005. That's a very, very small amount. And if you get knock during that period, then you don't have enough enrichment rate going on. And I think I can demonstrate that. Let me actually go up here. It's easier to find this. So if I am down here cruising into I gotta start moving it over there, and I'm launching my knock retard. I'm just going to cruise through this here and see if I get knock retard. Okay, I didn't get knock retard yet, but I got knock sensors that are popping up there. Okay, they're hitting that 1 volt range, a little bit above 1 volt right there, 141. But it hasn't really gone to knock retard yet. Okay, so we'll keep going. Try to get into the next event, which is a wide open throttle pull. And I'll actually advance that right on up to it. And now I've got knock retard. Okay, so this is not good. Okay, now this first pull right here was just a part throttle. This is the first full throttle, wide open throttle event. And I'm getting knock retard as I ramp into it. And as I go to the next event, yeah, boy, it's hard to see on this screen. I'm just going to go big screen. There we go. All right, so we get over here, and now I've got knock retard. Where am I? Okay, 52, 72, 100%. I'm already at full. I mean, I'm at wide open, but I'm holding on that knock retard. This knock retard has shifted me because it is actually knock retard. It has shifted me down into my part throttle spark table, and it's destroying my spark. It's not too bad to have a 17, but I'd rather have a 19 about here. Okay, so I know I've got knock retard. It's killing my spark, and how can I fix that? Well, I can change this FA increase enrichment rate by either 1 or 2. For this first one, I'm just going to change it by 1. I'm going to increase it to 6. Okay. And then I'll go out and I'll pull a log again. And I'll see what's happening. And if I have fixed that knock retard, I'm a winner. If I haven't, then I'll bump it 1 more. But I usually won't go more than 2 here. Okay, so that is power enrichment in a nutshell. Now, what happens a lot of time, I'm going to change this back to 5, and we'll check air charge and P ratio. These two tables are identical. I'll actually show you. They're twins. There's no difference. So you can run an air charge or you can run a P ratio. I prefer to run an air charge. So if you have a tuner, tune your car, and you come get it back and everything, and you got your HP tuners obviously, and you look in here and you see it's all changed and whacked out, God help you. Put it back to stock, because that tells you that tuner never ever looked at your VE tables. Okay. And most likely he compensated for errors here using timing. Now, that's a pretty common thing if you're running CMR. Okay. It's not uncommon to find that with CMR, because they can't do anything with the air model VE tables. They have to do it here someplace, or they have to do it in timing. So if I continue to have problems with knock at wide open throttle, then yeah, I might bump this up a little bit, but I'm not going to get crazy with it. I'm not going to rape the thing. If you go back to prior 2010 to 2014, these 60s will be in 112s. And I'm not sure, but I think it was a different injector at that time. That's the reason it is. And if you change injectors, you're going to have to change this too. So there's a lot of stuff you got to change if you change injectors, and most people miss it. So this is our power enrichment table, and like I said, if you're having some real difficulty with knock and stuff like that during wide open throttle, then yeah, you might have to do some adjusting here. But typically you don't. Typically the only thing you're going to change is this right here, that ramp in. So you don't get that ramp in knock when you're stomping the foot to the floor. Okay. And it's going to be more prevalent rather if you're starting. I like to do my wide open throttle pulls rolling. Okay, I don't like to do them from a dead stop. I think dead stop is, you can expect some issues there, but if you're rolling, you're going to get, I think, a better idea what's going on when you start logging data. So let's go back to logging data again and look at these. So yes, you can log power enrichment. Yes, you can, and you can graph it, and you can graph FA enrichment, but because you either got to be negative or positive, because if you average it, it's going to be off, because it's going to change. Okay. Then it's going to change depending on, so the power wrench will change on how much, depending on the FA enrichment. Normally they'll be side by side, pretty close to each other. But when you have to graph them like this, it's just difficult. So that's why I prefer to try and watch here, which is pretty much instantaneous. Now you see here, we're at this point in our log, we're in FA enrichment, and FA enrichment is 0.0196, where power enrichment is only 0.0060. Okay, so what's going on there? Why would that happen? Well, that's because right at this exact time, I'm just letting off the throttle and I'm starting to go into deceleration. So at this time right now, the bad part about it here is you really can't filter for that stuff, but you and take it out of the logs because it's a time log, and so what you have to do is look at the different thing, your accelerated position, and understand where you're at that time. So it gets a little more complex than just copying and pasting numbers in. But watch your knock sensors. I went to fuel enrichment, came out of power enrichment. I've got knock retard. My knock sensors are hitting. Any of those things could be causing this FA enrichment to occur. So I have to do something about that. And the ramp in and the ramp out, the FA increase and decrease, may need to have a little more fuel when that occurs. Okay, so I may also do the decrease which is when you're ramping out. If I'm knocking, I might increase this a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe, but only by the smallest amount. If it's 3, make it 4. Don't ever go, I'll just 10, or something like that, because you're just going to flood that cylinder. So let's look at spark for a minute. Now this gets crazy sometimes. We look at spark. I'll get the tables out here full size here. It takes a second. That's what happens when you're recording. But we have multiple tables, okay? And you have base, wide open throttle, and you have HO, wide open throttle, and then you have part throttle, base, and part throttle HO. Now there is a PID that you can log that will tell you when you're in high octane mode, okay? And it's just a yes or no. It's Boolean. It's either 1 or 0. So you can use it in a filter, but that will help you to try to figure out what table you're actually running in. If you are in knock retard, the odds are pretty darn good that you're going to be in part throttle base and not HO. But if everything is clean, you should be in HO all the time, unless there's stored adaptives that are keeping you out of it. And that can very well happen. And in fact, I've got a condition right now with this car where there's a stored adaptive about knock, and it's not showing up anyplace else. It doesn't. If I look for it, I can't find it, but I know it's there because I am primarily running on the base timing, not the high octane timing. And these cars are set up to run on the high octane. And that brings up another subject. If your 2015 or newer car, or at least 2017 that I can prove, and you go out and you buy a Diablo Sport Trinity or a Diablo Intune, and your best fuel you can get is 91, you really are wasting your money because these cars are already tuned to run in high octane mode, which is 91. Okay, so if you have to go to a low octane, you're going to get a little knock. It'll kick it down into your base. Your knock will clear up. Okay, but normally our cars are supposed to be running in high octane mode. You force it into high octane mode, or you change the base, it'll always be in high octane mode. So then when you get spark, knock retard rather, it's got nowhere to go. This, on the 2017 Plus, says, hey, I'm running in high octane right now. I just got some bad knock. Boom, I'm kicked down to the base. And, well, the knock goes away. Okay, so think about that a little bit if you decide, if you're thinking about doing a Diablo thing. I love Diablo. I think it's a great product. I started off with it. And when I switched over to HP tuners, I basically had a heart attack. But, over time, it really is the same thing and more. So if we look at, and this is startup, and then we look at minimum spark for startup and stuff like that. If you have doubts about where you are, all you got to do is look down here in the bottom corner when you're running your cursor over something, and it will change and tell you exactly what it's related to. So let's talk MBT for a minute. MBT, HO. MBT is maximum brake torque. In high octane mode, I cannot get over 40 degrees of timing. Okay, which is weird because if I go to my base, I can have up to 50, 60. All right, so hey, it's Dodge. Essentially, the curve's going to go like this, and it's going to be, unless you're going really super light load, cruising in a very controlled state. And I can show you something like that. Let's go over here. Here I am at 32 degrees of timing, and I think I should get way up there. 36, 35, 36, 36 degrees of timing. I had right there, no knock retard, everything is happening great. I'm running at 35 miles an hour, RPMs at 2155. If I had kicked this out of sport mode, I probably would have gotten more timing. But it just goes to show you, you look at those timing tables, and let's get out of this one here, and let's just say we want to look at our HO table, and let me split these. And I've got 36 at 2155, so right around here, 2200, and my air charge is 1.128, so there I am. 36 to 40, somewhere right in this range right here is where I'm at. It's giving me all the timing I want. And this is my, which table is this? Hang on just a minute. Okay, so that's my high octane table. I'm in the high octane table. There's no doubt in my mind at all. Okay, so that just goes to show you, under normal light loads. But if you get a little knock retard, boom, it'll knock you right down to this part throttle table. So when you're making your changes, I would leave the base table alone. And if you want to make timing changes, make them in the HO table, because the HO table will allow you'll have an escape route. You make a big mistake, it's going to kick you down to the base. You get too much knock, boom, it's going to kick you down to the base. And the thing is to get the timing on the HO table perfect. and get your fueling perfect so you don't get kicked into the into the base table. Then you can run 91 octane and enjoy all the benefits of it. Okay, so I know this is a lot. It's probably pretty confusing, but power enrichment and FA enrichment. We know what power enrichment is. It comes on when we stuff our foot to the floor, and we go past 3.15 volts. Okay. I didn't include the extra numbers, but okay, 3.1569 volts. Once we go hit that number, we go into power enrichment mode. And power enrichment and FA enrichment pretty much will track alongside of each other. So you've got two forms of enrichment going on until you get knock, or your catalytic converter or your exhaust gets too hot. If any of those things happen, boom, FA enrichment is going to take over, kick you out of power enrichment, and it will take over. But it doesn't mean you can take over forever. It's going to take over just until those situations are corrected, and then you go back into power enrichment. So you may come out of power enrichment on one pole. You may not go into total FA enrichment control on one pole, but the next one you may, because your catalytic converters are hot, or your exhaust is hot, or combination of the two has given you a little knock retard. Okay, hopefully you can understand this. It is confusing. If you have questions, please make sure you ask them, because it's kind of important. And once you get past the initial tuning, actually, even for this tuning right here, you definitely want to make sure that you're not kicking out of FA enrichment max is not kicking you out of PE enrichment. So make sure you put these to 0. Just set them all to 0. Okay? Alright, let's go back. Like I said before, I hope this isn't just absolutely totally confusing, but this is where it starts to get a little more difficult. Fueling issues are far more common once you start putting camshafts in and doing actual physical mods. But it doesn't mean that you can't learn to do them on a stock car. And once you learn to do them on a stock car, you'll know how to do them once that cam comes and that those nice headers come and you got all that stuff together. You'll have it dialed in. You'll be able to, you look at it and you go, oh yeah, I know it's doing that. I got this and that and all this stuff, and you just change it. Okay, just remember, don't rape the PE table. If you have to adjust it, that's okay. You can. And you're usually going to be increasing it. You very rarely, matter of fact, I've never taken fuel out of a PE table. I've always been able to add a little here, a little there to clear up an issue. And that's what we call tuning. We don't just go in and blanket change everything. We use the data that we've gathered to make the corrections. Okay, folks, that's enough for today. Y'all take care. Like and subscribe and share. You know the drill. Have a good one. Bye-bye.